Chapter 69, Cause and Effect 1. As the tragic death of the middle-aged cultivator echoed in the air, the Diamond Sex ancestor, who was searching for Xu Qing in the city, suddenly lifted his head. As a foundation-building cultivator, his five senses were extremely sharp. At that moment, when he heard the miserable cry in the distance, his expression instantly darkened. He leapt into the air and flew toward the source of the sound. Although there were mutated beasts in the surroundings, he was a Foundation establishment expert after all. As long as he didn't encounter strange existences or a large group of mutated beasts, he didn't care. Even though the dense anomalous substances affected him with his cultivation, as long as he didn't stay in the forbidden zone for more than a month, it wouldn't cause too much trouble. Therefore, after confirming the direction, the Diamond Sex ancestor roared and used the power of his cultivation to transmit his voice further. "Hold that brat back and wait for me." As he spoke, his figure in the air erupted with speed. From afar, he looked like a shooting star whistling through the air. At the same time, on the battlefield earlier, another sect elder retreated without hesitation the instant Xu Qing got close. He heard the ancestors roar, but he didn't want to die pointlessly here. Even if he was punished by the old ancestor afterwards, he would still accept it. After all, Xu Qing's murderous aura was too strong. When he attacked ruthlessly, the killing intent in his eyes made him unwilling to take the risk. Hence, his speed of retreat was extremely fast at that moment. He even used his flying talisman and instantly retreated several thousand feet. Xu Qing narrowed his eyes. He also heard the low roar of the sex ancestor coming from a very far distance. However, he didn't stop and chased after him fiercely. On the way, he picked up his iron stick and was about to use the flying talisman as well. However, in the next instant, his expression suddenly changed. His breathing paused for a moment before he turned around without hesitation and sped in the opposite direction. The instant Xu Qing turned around, the expression of the sex elder, who was flying in the air, instantly turned into one of horror. He felt a wave of coldness gushing toward him, and he also noticed a gigantic figure that had appeared beside him. That figure had no facial features. One could only see a head of blonde hair fluttering in the wind. It seemed to be a woman, and the figure beneath the face was incomparably huge. She wore a long white dress. At that moment, a large number of faces appeared densely on the faceless woman's long dress. Waves of mournful cries instantly spread in all directions, and endless strangeness pervaded the surroundings. Even the moon in the sky directly turned blood-colored. From afar, the figure of the sex elder was like an ant in front of the giant. It was insignificant. Under the countless crying faces of the faceless woman in the white dress, the sex elder's body trembled violently. His expression changed and he started crying slowly. However, amidst the crying, his eyes revealed extreme fear. It was as though his crying was uncontrollable. This lasted until the crying sound merged with the countless crying faces on the body of the faceless woman in the white dress. After that, waves of white ore spread out from the 7 orifices of the sex elder, and rapidly entered the body of the faceless woman in the white dress. At the next moment, the Diamond Sex elder's body directly turned into a dried corpse, and he lost all signs of life as he fell to the ground. At the same time, another face appeared on the faceless woman in the white dress. It was none other than the Diamond Sect elder. His face was expressionless as he floated above the white dress and let out a cry. This scene was seen by Xu Qing and also by the Diamond Sex ancestor, who had rushed over at this moment. Both of their bodies trembled. Xu Qing took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in his heart. He then increased his speed and sped into the city. It was just that although Xu Qing could leave, the sex ancestor, who was rushing over from afar, felt his scalp go numb and didn't dare to move at all. This was because the faceless woman in the white dress was walking toward him. The Diamond Sex ancestor was very clear that in the face of such an existence, he couldn't move rapidly. Otherwise, he would suffer the same fate as his own elder. Hence, amidst his terror and trepidation, the white-clothed faceless woman passed by him and gradually moved away. Only now did the sex ancestor heave a sigh of relief. However, for some reason, a trace of doubt appeared in his heart. I encountered this bizarre existence twice already. Why do I have a feeling that it seems to be helping that brat? Strange. The Diamond Sex ancestor gritted his teeth and looked in the direction Xu Qing had left in. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that he had to get rid of the other party. At that moment, He rushed out rapidly in pursuit. In the dark night, all kinds of roars rose and fell, echoing in every corner of the city. The sounds of chewing, crying and cold laughter spread in all directions. Under the moonlight, there were broken walls everywhere, as though they had turned into demons. This caused the strange feeling in the city to become increasingly intense. Xu Qing, who was speeding inside, had long been familiar with the roars and strangeness of this place. However, his countenance was still pale. He felt as though he was being stared at by countless malicious gazes, and those gazes turned icy cold, as though they were invading his body. When his entire body felt increasingly cold, Xu Qing passed by the place where he had hunted the vultures that day. When his gaze swept over it, his eyes instantly narrowed. Not far away, next to the abandoned carriage that had sunk into the mud, the blood-colored ragdoll that should have been hanging on the carriage's shaft had changed its position. It wasn't hanging there, but was placed on the carriage with its back facing Xu Qing, so its front couldn't be seen. Xu Qing's scalp tightened, and he quickly left this place. Not long later, the sex ancestor arrived at the place. When he swept his vigilant gaze across the surroundings, he saw the carriage and also the blood-colored puppet sitting on the carriage that was facing him. The eyes of this puppet were dim and its entire body was wet and red. It looked at the diamond sex ancestor sinisterly.